You think knowledge is power, but what if power comes at a cost you can never undo? There was a God who did not seek glory. He did not chase battles. He did not crave worship. He wanted something else. Control, not over people, not over land, over fate itself. His name was Odin. Among the gods, he was not the strongest. That was not his role. He was not the loudest, not the most feared, but he was the one who thought further than all of them. Because Odin understood something early, something most never realize. Strength fades, power shifts, even gods fall. But knowledge changes everything. If you know enough, you can see patterns. If you see patterns, you can predict outcomes. And if you can predict outcomes, you can control what happens next. Or at least, that's what he believed. But there was a problem. The kind of knowledge Odin wanted was not something you could learn. It was not written, not taught, not shared. It was hidden, deep in places where no one goes. And one of those places was older than gods themselves. A well, not just water, something far more dangerous, the well of wisdom. It did not shine, it did not call out, it did not promise anything. It simply existed, silent, waiting, because it did not give knowledge freely. It demanded something in return, and not something small, something real, something that could not be taken back. And Odin knew that. That is why he went alone. No guards, no power, no protection. Because this was not a battle. It was a decision. As he moved through the cold, empty lands, the world around him felt different. Still, as if everything had stopped, just to watch what he would do next. And when he finally reached it, he understood immediately. The well was not just a place. It was a threshold, a point between knowing and not knowing. And once you crossed it, there was no going back. Odin stood there, looking into the darkness of the water. And for the first time, he hesitated. Because now it was real, not an idea, not a goal, a cost. To gain what he wanted, he would have to lose something. Not something small, not something symbolic, something essential, his eye. One of the most valuable things a god could possess. Not just sight, but perception, depth, understanding of the world itself. And he would have to give it up. Forever, no return, no reversal, gone. And that is where most would stop. Because there is a point where the price becomes too high, where the gain no longer feels worth the loss. But Odin did not turn away, because for him, there was something worse than losing, not knowing. Living without understanding was a weakness he refused to accept. And in that moment, he made the choice, not out of emotion, not out of impulse, but with complete awareness of what it would cost him. And slowly, without hesitation, he reached toward the well. Odin stood before the well longer than he expected, not because he was afraid, but because for the first time he was facing something that even he could not control. This was not a battle, not a war, not a situation where strength or intelligence could give him an advantage. This was something much simpler and much more dangerous, a price that had to be paid without negotiation. The surface of the well did not move, it did not react, it did not tempt him or warn him. It simply existed as if it had seen countless beings stand in the same place, thinking the same thoughts and making the same decision. And in that silence, Odin understood something important. This was not about gaining knowledge. This was about proving that he was willing to lose something real in order to obtain it, because knowledge that costs nothing has no value, and knowledge that costs something irreversible changes you forever. Odin slowly stepped closer. The air around him felt heavier, as if the world itself was narrowing down to this single moment. There were no distractions left, no voices, no movement, only the choice in front of him. He did not rush. He did not hesitate anymore either. Because once you understand the cost, the only thing left is to decide whether you accept it. And Odin had already decided. Without looking away, he raised his hand toward his face. Not dramatically, not with anger, not with fear. There was no emotion in his movement, only intention. This was not a sacrifice driven by desperation. It was a calculated decision made by someone who valued knowledge more than anything else. In that moment, Odin gave up his eye. Not symbolically, not partially, completely. And the moment it left him, something changed instantly. The world did not go dark. It became clearer. Not in the way he expected. Not sharper in vision, but deeper in understanding. It was as if losing one way of seeing forced something else to open. Something that had always been there, but never fully used. The well reacted. For the first time, the still surface moved. Not violently, not dramatically, but with purpose. The water shifted, as if acknowledging what had just been given. And then, slowly, something began to rise from within it. Not light, not energy, but understanding. And it did not come as words. It did not come as explanations. It came as realization. Odin did not learn in the way humans understand learning. He did not receive information piece by piece. Instead, everything appeared at once. Connections, patterns, structures, truths that had always existed but were impossible to see without the right perspective. He saw how events connect across time. He saw how small decisions create massive outcomes. He saw how fate is not random, but built step by step, choice by choice, moment by moment. And most importantly, he saw what was coming. Not everything, but enough. Enough to understand that even with all this knowledge, there were things that could not be avoided. And that is where the real cost revealed itself. Because knowledge does not always give you control. Sometimes it gives you awareness without power. Odin saw the future of the gods. He saw conflict. He saw destruction. He saw an end that could not be easily changed. And in that moment, the truth became heavier than the sacrifice. Because now, he knew. And knowing something you cannot fully prevent is far more difficult than not knowing at all. That is the part no one talks about. Everyone speaks about Odin gaining wisdom. No one speaks about what that wisdom showed him. Because the more you understand reality, the less you can hide from it. And Odin, standing there with one eye, understood something that changed him forever. Power is not the ability to control everything. Power is the ability to see clearly, even when the truth is uncomfortable. And from that moment on, Odin was no longer the same. He did not become happier. He did not become lighter. He became something else. More aware, more focused, more dangerous. Because now he no longer guessed. He knew. And knowledge like that changes how you act, how you decide, and how you see every moment that follows. After that moment, nothing about Odin remained the same. Even though to others, it might have seemed like nothing had changed at all. He still stood the same way, still spoke the same way, still ruled among the gods as before. But inside, everything had shifted. in a way that could not be reversed or ignored. Because once you see the world through truth, you can never go back to seeing it through illusion. And that is the part most people fail to understand. They believe Odin sacrificed his eye and gained power, as if it was a simple exchange, as if he gave something and received something better in return. But that is not what happened. What he received was not comfort, not clarity in a peaceful sense, but awareness, constant, unavoidable awareness of how things truly are. He began to notice patterns everywhere, not occasionally, not when he tried to, but constantly, without effort, as if his mind could no longer stop connecting everything around him. Every action led to something. Every decision created a chain. Every small moment carried consequences that extended far beyond what anyone else could see. And that made him different. Not stronger in the traditional sense, but more precise, more calculated, more controlled. Because once you understand how things unfold, you stop acting randomly. You stop relying on chance. You stop hoping. You begin to move with intention. And that is what made Odin dangerous, not because he could overpower others, but because he rarely made a move without understanding what it would lead to. But even with all of that, there was something he could not change. What he saw in the well did not disappear. It stayed with him. The future he had glimpsed, the outcomes he had understood, the events that were set into motion long before they would happen, all of it remained clear in his mind. And that created a different kind of burden. Because knowing what is coming does not always mean you can stop it. Sometimes it only means you will recognize it when it happens. And that is a much heavier weight to carry. Odin did not speak about it. He did not share what he saw. Because truth at that level is not something you can easily explain. And even if you could, most would not understand it. Instead, he changed the way he acted. He became more patient, more distant, more focused on what truly mattered, rather than what appeared important on the surface. Because once you see the full structure, you stop wasting energy on things that do not affect it. And that is why Odin was never like the other gods. While others chased power, status, recognition, Odin chased understanding. While others reacted, Odin observed. While others fought without thinking beyond the moment, Odin considered what that fight would lead to long after it ended. And that difference made him something else entirely. Not just a god, but a strategist of reality itself. Someone who understood that the present moment is never isolated. It is always connected to what comes next. And that is what most people miss in this story. They focus on the sacrifice. They focus on the eye. They focus on the act itself. But the real story is what came after. Because the sacrifice was not the end. It was the beginning. The moment where Odin stopped seeing the world as it appeared and started seeing it as it truly is. And that kind of vision changes everything. It removes comfort. It removes ignorance. It removes the ability to pretend that things are simpler than they are. But it also gives something in return. Not control, not safety, but clarity. And clarity, even when it is difficult, is one of the most powerful things that can exist. Because once you see clearly, you can no longer be easily manipulated. You can no longer be easily misled. You can no longer be controlled by things that rely on illusion. And that is why Odin's sacrifice matters. Not because he lost something, but because of what he chose to gain instead. He chose truth over comfort, understanding, over simplicity, awareness over ignorance. And that is a choice most people never make, because it is easier to live without seeing everything. It is easier to move through life without questioning too deeply, without analyzing every pattern, without recognizing every consequence. But Odin did not choose the easy path. He chose the one that required him to give something up permanently. And that is what makes this story different. It is not about power. It is not about mythology. It is about a decision to see the world as it really is, no matter the cost. And once that decision is made, everything else changes. Because from that moment forward, you are no longer moving blindly. You are moving with awareness. And awareness is something that cannot be undone.